In California, a 45-foot-tall Disneyland animatronic blazes. Authorities have extinguished the fire while patrons evacuated the area. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Nina Richie Elago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Expert says Chinese envoy's visit to Philippines seeks to ease tensions in East Asia. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and U.S. leader Joe Biden to reaffirm bilateral ties. Department of Education recommends shift to modular learning due to extremely hot weather. Battle in Sudan sparks multiple evacuation operations. And K-pop group Twice announces concert in Philippine Arena. International relations expert says Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang's visit to the Philippines was intended to ease tensions over Taiwan and the West Philippine Sea. Celine Dorado tells us more.
Part of Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang's visit to the country was to ease tensions between Manila and Beijing over Taiwan and the West Philippine Sea. This was the opinion of an international relations expert following Mr. Qin's courtesy call to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. at Malacañang Palace on Saturday, April 22. In an interview with Net25 radio program Ano sa Palagay Nyo, Dr. Rene de Castro, an international relations expert from De La Salle University, said that China's friendly conversation to calm the Philippines is not a new tactic. During the meeting between the president and the Chinese official, they agreed to increase communication lines between the two countries on important matters, particularly on the issue of the West Philippine Sea. According to Dr. De Castro, China's friendly conversation to calm the Philippines is nothing new.
It's being played out that you have, of course, the foreign minister of China coming here, doing some damage control, triggered, of course, by the uproar, by the statement of the ambassador who was actually just doing his job. And, of course, warning us, given the fact that we have expanded EDCA and, of course, the ongoing military exercise here in Balikatan. Then, of course, our president is going to the United States to formalize what has been discussed in the 2+2 meeting that was, of course, conducted early this month.
Minister Qin's visit to the country comes amidst controversial statements made by Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Wang Zhilian, regarding the granting of additional access to American troops in new locations as part of the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement or EDCA implementation. In his statement, Ambassador Wang also warned about the fate of thousands of Filipino workers in Taiwan who are at risk due to the presence of the United States in the region. Dr. De Castro agreed with the former National Security Advisor's statement that it was China that pushed the Philippines closer to the United States.
I will refer ho dun sa statement na sinabi ho nung dating National Security Advisor ho natin at dati kong professor, no, which captures the essence of this, no. Sinabi niya dun sa same forum na nagsalita yung ambassador, doon sa Manila Forum, Chinese ambassador, China has pushed us into the arms of the Americans. Dahil nga ho, yung si Presidente, nung nandun siya sa Beijing, inassure siya, lines of communication. Pagdating niya ho dito, sinabi sa kanya ng Coast Guard, yung mga fishermen natin, tinataboy sa Ayungin Shoal, yung mga yung supply vessels natin na nagdadala ng supplies sa mga Philippine Naval Personnel sa BRP, BRP Sierra Madre, I'm sorry, inano na laser. So ano sabi niya, ano nangyayari? Iba yung sinasabi sa akin sa Beijing, iba yung nangyayari sa West Philippine Sea. Pwede ho tayong magkaroon ng debate among us Filipinos may galit sa EDCA, it's part of our democratic process.
Correct.
Iba na ho, yung isang bansa, sasabihin tayo, bakit kayo nagtatayo ng ganyang EDCA sites, but those sites are still within Philippine territory. Sa aspeto ho ng international law sovereignty, no countries could criticize us for establishing those facilities because they're still within Philippine territory. May ligay natin sa Batanes yan. Territory pa rin natin. Paano ho yung 4 na Chinese militarized structure na nasa lobo ng ating exclusive economic zone? So ayun nga sinasabi ko China is very hypocritical when it criticizes the EDCA. Kung maglalagay nga ho siya, nagko-conduct siya ng military exercises hanggang Pacific. Samantala yung balikatan nangyayari lang ho sa ating teritoryo.
Correct.
Yes.
So,
So, tingnan ho natin yung ginagawa ng China at yung sinasabi niya. Kung kikriticizein tayo ng may EDCA sites, bakit hindi niya tignan yung ginagawa niya sa West Philippine Sea, South China Sea?
According to De Castro, although this is what they call a balanced approach in the academe, it remains an aspiration because in reality, it is more complicated. Celine Dorado for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s Washington visit will finalize several bilateral agreements reached during the 2+2 bilateral meeting between representatives from the Philippines and the United States. President Marcos will be received by U.S. President Joe Biden in Washington, D.C. on May 1. Last week, Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo and Department of National Defense Officer in charge Carlito Galvez Jr. also traveled to Washington, D.C. for the 2+2 bilateral meetings with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. In an interview with the program Ano sa Palagay Nyo on Net 25, Dr. Rene De Castro, an international relations expert from the De La Salle University, stated that the May 1 bilateral meeting in Washington will follow the previous meeting between the two presidents on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York last September.
It's a continuation of what happened last year on the side ng UN General Assembly, and of course to approve the measures that have been discussed during the 2+2 meeting. Now, when of course you have our Foreign Secretary and our Defense Secretary going to Washington, D.C. and of course meeting their American counterparts. And they came out with a very long statement. I think it's about 15 pages.
Wow.
So what the two leaders would do is just to reaffirm the what I call the overall bilateral relationships. Kasi what is happening right now is our relationship with the United States is more comprehensive than ever, except of course, we have always focused on the security, yung alliance.
Marcos's Washington visit follows his meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang in Malacanang over the weekend. The visit came amidst a controversy brought by the Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Wang Xilian's comment on the establishment of new locations for the implementation of Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement or EDCA and his veiled threat to thousands of Filipino workers in Taiwan. King is the highest official from Beijing to visit the Philippines following President Marcos's state visit to China last January. The Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, believes building more EDCA sites in the future will give 360-degree protection to the country. Prince Limonero files this report.
AFP spokesperson Colonel Medel Aguilar says establishing more EDCA sites in the Philippines will help its troops secure the country's maritime territory. Aguilar explains the armed forces need a 360-degree capability in order to protect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Philippines. He admits a big budget is needed if AFP decides to add more EDCA bases on top of the 9 existing locations. China strongly opposes the military cooperation between the Philippines and United States. Analysts say Beijing believes Washington's objective is to militarily contain China. Prince Limonero for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A Chinese Coast Guard or CCG ship has been shadowing two Philippine Coast Guard or PCG vessels approaching Ayungin Shoal in the West Philippine Sea. The PCG vessels approached the shoal in an unusual direction, but the CCG positioned itself to block any attempt to enter the shoal's interior. A second CCG ship arrived later to possibly aid the first one in its attempt to intercept. The PCG has yet to release a statement on the incident. Mayor Benjamin Magalong says COVID cases in Baguio City have risen. Madeline Villar Moratillo has the details.
Mayor Benjamin Magalong says there is a gradual increase in Baguio City's COVID-19 cases. Yet he states there are cities open to consulting experts on whether they should implement strict measures in wearing face mask.
Ayun pong paggamit ng face mask ay mandatory sa loob ng mga public utility vehicles, ng mga jeep, mga bus, train, mga eroplano, mga barko. Kung halimbawa po, nasa building tayo, kung sa loob ng airport, optional din po yan. Yun po ang alinsunod dun sa utos ng IATF. Na nagkaroon po ng meeting ang IATF, nagkaroon ng clarification, and ang decision nga ay gawin pong mandatory sa loob ng mga public utility vehicles, pero optional po sa labas po nito.
Even public transportation is not spared in heightened precautions against the disease. Transport Assistant Secretary for Railways Georgette Aquino says wearing face mask is now mandatory in MRT and LRT due to COVID-19 hikes. Based on the Department of Health recent data, 26 areas in the country remain under Alert Level 2 status since June 2022. The health agency continues to encourage anyone who is currently unvaccinated or unboosted to get vaccination or booster shots. Madeline Villar Moratillo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippines says the number of affected Filipinos in Sudan may possibly reach 700. Samantha Intal files this report.
Department of Foreign Affairs or FDA says affected Filipinos in Sudan may reach 700 after conflicts rise between the Sudanese military and rapid support forces. FDA Undersecretary Eduardo Jose de Vega, their records show only 300 registered Filipino residents. Yet, their office says they've received over 500 messages from undocumented individuals. De Vega says these individuals asked for help from the embassy, with 156 of them ready for repatriation anytime. The FDA initially stated they will start the repatriation of OFWs this week. De Vega confirms there are two routes they can use going out of Sudan. One is by sea through the port of Sudan. Ships then will take evacuees to Saudi Arabia. The other route is through the border of Egypt, where a team will assist them to head back to Manila. Samantha Intal for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
DepEd approves the temporary return of distance learning in schools in case the heat index increases. The Department of Education has warned the school heads that face-to-face classes may be suspended and temporarily moved to modular distance learning due to the extreme heat and electricity shortage in some parts of the country. According to DepEd spokesperson Michael Powa, the decision is upon the school heads of the private and public schools. This is to ensure the safety of the students and that the reported fainted students incident will not happen again. More than 100 students in Occidental Mindoro were affected by the extreme heat last week. 7 of its students experienced fainting and difficulty in breathing. 2 of them were taken to hospital but were later sent home, while 10 of them experienced dizziness and the remaining had headaches. Because of the incident, DepEd appealed to the parents to keep their children hydrated by bringing water bottles this summer. Albay Congressman Joey Salceda wants to ensure the security of collected data from from SIM card registrations. Salceda recommends having periodic reviews of privacy protocols of telecommunications companies or telcos and National Privacy Commission or NPC. This is after reports of 1.2 million stored personal records from Philippine National Police or PNP have been compromised. Salceda says SIM card registration will be the biggest collection of personal data in the country that can be attacked by hackers. He urges NTC and NPC to lay out plans to prevent security breaches. Senator Grace Poe also urged the public to register their SIM cards for their own protection and peace of mind. The senator heads the Senate Committee on Public Services and sponsored the SIM Registration Act. Meanwhile, the National Telecommunications Commission says that out of 168,016,400 SIM cards, only 47.84% of the total subscribers have successfully complied. Oil companies will lower their pump prices on Tuesday. In separate advisories, Sea Oil and Petrogas said the cost of gasoline will go down by 1 peso and 40 centavos per liter. 70 centavos per liter will be cut from diesel products. The price of kerosene will be cut by 20 centavos per liter. Sources say the price adjustment is due to supply and demand in the international market. Coming up, diplomat citizens flee Sudan as deadly fighting raged into its second week. Russia launches video advertising to recruit soldiers. And the United Kingdom conducts its first test of their new emergency alert system. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Alamin natin ano ba itong Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership? Ano ang may dudulot ng trade agreement na ito sa bansa? Makakasama ko si Department of Trade Industry Secretary Alfred Pascual. Tungay natin ang kwento ng kauna-unahang visually impaired na nakabasa sa bar exams. Lahat ng yan sa Counterpoint, Merkules, alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito sa Net 25.
Mga ka-PSL, ako diay si Gab Dagangon ng Davao Occidental Tigers. Para sa mainit action, sa hardcourt, tutok lang sa Pilipinas Super League. Ito ang liga ko.
Let's get together sa Net 25. Ngayong linggo sa Cine Throwback.
Lalong bibigat ang kasalanan mo sa ginawa mong iyan. Lalo naman hindi ako maaaring mag-Diyos na walang kasalanan. Hindi ba? Naparito ako upang hanapin ang tunay na pinatay. Kung hindi ka pa maaaring maglalaba, nakalimutan mo ba ito'y napakainit pa? Kailangan natin isa dito. Are you crazy? Nakalimutan mo bang wanted ka?
Ngayong linggo, alas 12 ng tanghali. Dito lang sa Net 25.
At yan po mga kaibigan ang ating mga balitang nagaganap dito po sa aking kinaroroonan. Abangan na lamang ang susunog. Susunog? Bakit susunog? Diba dapat susunod?
Susunog!
Ha?
Susunog ka kay! Nasusunog! Nasusunog ang goodwill!
Nasusunog? Ha? Nasusunog? Teka muna, sandali lang. Nagbabaga mga balita. Ang nagaganap ngayon dito sa ating kinaroroonan. Bakit? Anong nangyayari?
Nasusunog ang goodwill!
Nasusunog? Ha?
Attorney, doon daw sa kusina nagsimula! Hindi, nasusunog! Sa swimming pool! Sa swimming pool!
Anong sa swimming pool? Paano mangyayari sa swimming pool?
Teka muna, sandali lang! Chichinelasin ko kayong lahat. Ano ang pinangyarihan ng sunog? Saan ang galing? Sino nagsunog? Yan po ang malalaman natin mga kasagutan sa Season 2 ng Goodwill.
Baka doon sa opisina. Miss Torina, pwede kong pa-shoutout? Sabihin lang, shoutout, Mang Pepe. Mang Pepe, ano ba tayo na nagsusunog kayo? Okay, basta. Dali.
Magandang araw, magandang araw. Magandang araw, magandang araw. Magandang araw, magandang araw. Magandang araw, magandang araw. Any time of the day, it's super saya. Lalo na kung si Ara lagi mong kasama. Magandang araw, magandang araw.
Dito sa ASPN, siguradong sagot namin ang mga impormasyong kailangan ninyong malaman sa araw-araw.
Official nang bukas sa mga motorista ang NLEX connector.
Meron ba talagang alitan ang pamilyang Degamo laban po sa Teves?
Our families have gone a long way, no? Ang una talagang kasama or ally ni Governor Degamo is ako at yung lolo ko.
Nagtala ng maximum heat index.
Nagsara po kahapon, April 3. Nako, bagyang humina po ang piso. Kami na din ni Ali ang bahala sa pagsiyasat sa mga isyong kinakaharap ng bansa.
Kung makita nila na meron namang sufficient basis, ay pwede silang magpa-issue sa International Criminal Court ng warrant of arrest.
He was looking to blame, binaon talaga siya, inilibing. Your question.
So 12 years, I have done my part, Benson, and I know you are proud of me. In spite of the odds.
Samahan nyo kami, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Dito lang yan sa Net 25!
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Foreign nations have evacuated diplomats, staff, and others trapped in Sudan as the conflict persists for a 9th day with no sign of a truce. 2 French flights flee from Khartoum to Djibouti, carrying some 200 people from various countries. An Italian Air Force C-130 left Khartoum with evacuees, while another plane carries Italy's ambassador and military personnel involved in the evacuation. In an operation coordinated by the Spanish Ministries of Foreign Affairs and the European Union, Spain evacuated 30 nationals and 70 others from European or Latin American countries to Djibouti. Over 420 people have been killed and over 3,700 have been injured in fighting between Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces. According to UN agencies, thousands of Sudanese have left fighting in Khartoum, but millions remain trapped in their homes amid explosions, gunfire, and theft, with no electricity, food, or water. Beijing's foreign ministry announced they safely evacuated the first group of its citizens from Sudan. Foreign ministry spokesperson Mao Ning did not give a specific number.
中方在有关问题上的立场没有变化。关于领土主权问题，中方的立场是一贯的、清晰的。中方尊重各国主权、独立和领土完整。 维护联合国宪章宗旨和原则。
But senior foreign ministry official Wu Xi vows to try every means to protect the safety of its 1,500 plus Chinese compatriots in Sudan. South Korea will send a military aircraft and soldiers to evacuate their fellow citizens stranded in Sudan, where hundreds of people have died since fighting broke out last week. President Yoon Suk-yeol called on officials to help get the Koreans to safety after being briefed with information suggesting the situation in Sudan could further worsen in the days ahead. Seoul's defense ministry said it would send a military C-130J transport jet and troops to evacuate its nationals, including diplomatic staff. Various nations have also done rescue operations, such as the United States, Canada, Britain, Norway, and European Union nations. According to UN figures, more than 420 people have been killed and thousands wounded as deadly fighting raged into a second week between forces loyal to two rival generals. China's ambassador to France, Liu She, has sparked ire in Eastern Europe and Ukraine while drawing rebuke from Paris and the EU after questioning the sovereignty of post-Soviet countries. On Friday, the ambassador suggested post-Soviet nations do not have effective status under international law because there is no international agreement confirming their status as sovereign nations. The French Foreign Ministry registered its dismay and said it is up to the Chinese government to confirm whether they reflect its position. His comments cast doubt on all former Soviet republics, including members of the European Union. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell branded the remark unacceptable and that these declarations do not represent China's official policy. Baltic countries like Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia condemned the comments from Liu, who is part of a new class of outspoken Chinese diplomats. Latvia's Foreign Minister Edgars Rinkēvičs wrote on Twitter that his views were completely unacceptable, while Estonia's top diplomat Margus Tsahkna called them false and a misinterpretation of history. China says it respects the sovereign state status of all ex-Soviet countries on Monday. Beijing's comment comes after its ambassador to France sparked outrage in Europe. Foreign Ministry spokesperson asserts China's position on territorial sovereignty is consistent and clear. She says Xi Jinping's government also upholds the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. She also points out China was one of the first countries to establish diplomatic relations with relevant countries. On Friday, Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang reiterated that the Taiwan Strait belongs to China. He emphasized China's rightful authority to uphold its sovereignty. Qin made these comments in a joint press conference with German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock.
要合作，不要对抗，无论零和对抗还是集团对抗，都要不得。经贸合作是两国关系的压舱石，互利共赢是中德务实合作的底色。中德在产业链上的依存关系是经济全球化的必然结果，也是市场规则下的最优的选择。
He highlighted a peaceful reunification with Taiwan despite the recent allegations that China is disrupting peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. China recently conducted military exercises around the strait after Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen's meeting with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell asks European navies to patrol the disputed Taiwan Strait. He reiterates Taiwan concerns Europe economically, commercially, and technologically. Borrell asserts patrolling Taiwan Strait will show Europe's commitments to freedom of navigation. China continues to claim Taiwan as its territory and repeatedly vowed to bring the island under its control one day. Guatemalan President Alejandro arrived in Taiwan to reinforce diplomatic ties. According to the Taiwanese president's office, Giammattei is scheduled for a 4-day trip. He is scheduled to address Taipei's Congress and visit a tech company in Taichung. Giammattei is also expected to attend a promotional event to endorse Guatemalan coffee. Amid the diplomatic visit, Beijing warned Chiang Mai not to help Taiwan and oppose the general trends and aspirations of the Guatemalan people's benefit. But Taiwan's foreign ministry condemned Beijing for being extremely disrespectful or insulting its diplomatic ally and its head of state. Meanwhile, Chiang Mai responded before leaving Taipei that his visit clearly tells that countries have a right to self-governance. Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, headed by Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, secured 4 of the 5 Diet seats. The LDP won the Yamaguchi numbers 2 and 4 districts and the Chiba number 5 district in the House of Representatives, as well as the Oita prefectural district in the upper chamber. The Yamaguchi number 4 district used to be held by former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was assassinated by a gunman during an upper house election campaign speech on July 8 last year. The LDP won key gubernatorial races in the first round of the quadrennial unified local polls on April 9. Kishida, who took office in October 2021, has been exploring the best timing to win a general election, as he is eager to be re-elected as the leader of the ruling party. The next LDP presidential race is slated to be held in September of 2024. Cuba says leaders should find a peaceful resolution to end the conflict in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov declares a military cooperation between Russia and Cuba in progress. RT correspondent Semyon Senderov files this report.
This is the 4th and the last stop of Sergei Lavrov's Latin American journey. Here in Cuba, he has had some traditional activities, as for example, he lighted a wreath at Jose Marti Monument. Then he had a meeting with his Cuban counterpart. The Cuban minister, Bruno Rodriguez Parilla, applauded the Russian efforts to stop the expansion of the NATO, and also he urged to find the peace in Ukraine as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Sergei Lavrov condemned once again the sanctions that the United States imposed against Cuba. Also, after these meetings, Sergei Lavrov met the Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel.
Wagner fighters say Ukrainian forces opened fire when they try to evacuate civilians to safety. Experts say winning Artyomovsk is crucial, being the transport hub of supplies to Kiev soldiers in Donbass.
Let's say there is a contact in this building. We found out that there are civilians there, and already heavy artillery does not work there in any way. Only by storming it, we knock out the enemy. We go in, we take the civilians. True, the enemy does not always allow civilians to be taken away. They start targeting the evacuation group, not only by artillery fire, but also by shooting. We're taking grandparents out of the building. The grandfather couldn't walk. He had to be carried out on a stretcher, and they used a machine gun on the evacuation group.
Are there many such stories here?
In principle, yes. They're not shy about it. They can write children, people on the building, and they are there themselves, although they understand that they put the lives of civilians at risk.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Defense Minister Richard Marles released Australia's biggest defense reform in decades. Top officials dub it as the most significant since World War II. The plan aims to modernize Australia's military and prepare it for future challenges in the Indo-Pacific region.
This review and the government's response to it does provide for a reshaping of the Australian Army, but in a way which gives it a much greater strike capability and a much longer range strike capability.
Japan has ordered its military to prepare to shoot down a North Korean spy satellite if it enters its territory. Defense Minister Yasukazu Hamada also instructs their forces to make necessary preparations for Pyongyang's new launch. The preparations include deploying troops to the southern prefecture of Okinawa to minimize damage should a ballistic missile fall. Japan's announcement comes after Pyongyang leader Kim Jong-un stated North Korea will launch its first spy satellites. Kim said they intend to counter perceived threats from the United States and South Korea. Ukrainian Deputy Foreign Minister Andriy Melnik says Kiev is thankful to their allies for military help. Yet Melnik claims West's armed delivery to Ukraine is not enough. He says Western nations should allocate 1% of their GDP for weapons deliveries to Ukraine. Washington already provided more than $35.4 billion worth of arms to Kiev. EU states added another $13.3 billion. But Melnik insists Ukraine needs 10 times more to finish Russian aggression this year. The United Kingdom conducts its first test of their new emergency alert system. Millions of phones vibrated and sounded loud alarms across the UK. A text message accompanied the alarm. It read that this was a test for a new system to warn people if there was a life-threatening emergency nearby. The alarm had been set to go off at 3 p.m. local time. Some phones, though, sounded before the scheduled time and others minutes later. Some people complained on social media that they had not received the warning at all. Emergency services and the government hope to use the system to advise people about issues such as severe flooding and fires. The system is modeled on similar alerts in Canada, the US, Japan, and the Netherlands. Sources say U.S. President Joe Biden plans to tap Chavez Rodriguez as his 2024 re-election campaign manager. Chavez Rodriguez is one of the most prominent Latinas in the administration. She is also the granddaughter of the late labor leader Cesar Chavez. Currently, Chavez Rodriguez is a senior advisor to the president and the director of the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis kicks off his international tour in Tokyo on Monday before a possible presidential race. DeSantis praised Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's initiative to bolster Tokyo's defenses.
Very much applaud your efforts to bolster your defenses. We understand it's a tough neighborhood out here with North Korea and the rise of the CCP. And we really believe that a strong Japan is good for America, and a strong America is good for Japan. So we commend you on that, and we hope that our country is there with you every step of the way.
Despite having the biggest market in the U.S., Florida doesn't have a direct flight to Japan. The governor says he plans to meet with airlines to discuss possible routes. His travel to Japan, South Korea, Israel, and Britain is considered as an effort to build diplomatic and security ties with said countries. A wide-ranging advertising campaign appears to have been launched in Russia, urging citizens to join the military. The Defense Ministry in Moscow released a video appealing to Russians to give up their civilian jobs in favor of a contract with the military. This ad features a supermarket guard, a fitness instructor, and a taxi driver, all apparently disillusioned with civilian life and finding fulfillment after joining the army. You're a real man. Be one, says the ad. The video promises a monthly salary of at least 204,000 rubles, roughly 137,000 pesos, 4 times Russia's average salary. Russia is reportedly trying to recruit 400,000 voluntary soldiers. The ministry authorities are almost certainly seeking to delay any new overt mandatory mobilization for as long as possible to minimize domestic dissent. Up next, in Argentina, dengue fever outbreak kills more than 40 people. A Disneyland animatronic catches fire during a live show. And air pollution in Thailand leaves millions in need of treatment. Please don't go away. We've got more stories around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
Magsi-swimming dapat dyan, hindi na umabot. Mabuti ba tulungan natin?
Ba, hindi gumagalaw ah.
Birthday kasi ng kaibigan ko. Hindi ka pupunta. Ako nga, si anti-hero. Grabe ka sa anak mo. Mas matindi ka pa nga dyan nung kabataan mo. Nung high school, nagpaalam pa, group project. Nakipagkita ka lang sa boyfriend mo.
Kinakain na nagsisimula sa net. Hey, katon!
Puto. Kulangot.
Alamin natin ano ba itong Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership? Ano ang may dudulot ng trade agreement na ito sa bansa? Makakasama ko si Department of Trade Industry Secretary Alfred Pascual. Tungayin natin ang kwento ng kauna-unahang visually impaired na nakabasa sa bar exams. Lahat ng yan sa Counterpoint, Miyerkules, alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito sa Net 25.
Sa dami ng problema, parang ang hirap ng huminga, di ba? Minsan, pakiramdam mo, hopeless na. Kaya dapat ihayag ng saloobin, himayin ang hinaing, alamin ang pwedeng gawin. Mag-reality check tayo.
Tingin ang real talk ng bayan. Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net 25.
Ay abangan nyo dahil sa susunod, meron pa kaming Luso! 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 Luso!
Manood ng Sa Ganang Mamamayan araw-araw.
At sama-sama tayong mag-luso!
This portion is brought to you by Robic Builders, Quezon City Motor Vehicle Inspection Center.
A manhunt in India that lasted for more than a month has come to an end following the arrest of separatist Amritpal Singh. Singh surrendered to Indian authorities early Sunday in the northern state of Punjab after police surrounded a village. The 30-year-old man has been calling for a separate Sikh homeland known as Khalistan. Singh and his supporters raided a police station in February after one of his aides had been arrested for assault and attempted kidnapping. He has been on the run since then. Thousands of officers had been searching for Singh. Authorities shut off the internet in the Sikh-majority state of Punjab during one of their searches. More than 100 separatist followers have been arrested and jailed hundreds by Indian authorities. Gatherings of more than 4 people have been banned in some areas in the country. Peru's ex-president Toledo faces extradition for corruption charges. The former president of Peru, Alejandro Toledo, surrendered himself to U.S. authorities Friday. Toledo, who served as president from 2001 to 2006, is facing corruption charges in his home country. The former president is accused of accepting a bribe of $35 million from Brazilian construction company Odebrecht. This was in exchange for help in obtaining public works contracts. Peruvian prosecutors are seeking a 20-year prison sentence for Toledo, but he denies any wrongdoing. On Thursday, a U.S. federal judge denied Toledo's request to block his extradition to Peru. Toledo's lawyer, David Pauker, expressed disappointment with the judge's decision, stating that Toledo was a victim of political prosecution. Pauker also criticized Peru's justice system, arguing that the case against Toledo rested largely on the unreliable testimony of two criminals. All of Peru's presidents over the past 3 decades have faced accusations of corruption or investigations related to corruption. Burundian authorities have arrested former Prime Minister Alain Guillaume Bunyoni. The arrest happens on the eve of his 51st birthday, 7 months after he vacated his position in a high-level political purge. Bunyoni was Prime Minister from June 2020 to September 2022. He was fired after the current president, Evariste Ndayishimiye, accused unnamed people of planning a coup against him. The former PM has been under United States sanction since 2015 over his role in human rights violations during the deceased former president Pierre Nkurunziza's term. Nkurunziza oversaw a crackdown on political opponents amid turmoil after launching a bid for a third term in office. Some 300,000 people were killed in 13 years of ethnic fighting, while around 400,000 fled abroad amid reports of arbitrary arrests, killings, and disappearances. Bunyoni served as his security minister. The family of a man sentenced to death in Singapore for possession of cannabis is pleading with authorities for clemency. 46-year-old Tangaraju Supia is due to be hanged Wednesday after being convicted in 2017 of conspiring to smuggle drugs. Singapore has some of the world's toughest anti-drug laws and insists the death penalty is an effective deterrent. Rights activists say Supia never handled the drugs, and they add he had no legal counsel when police questioned him. His trial had been told Supia was involved in a conspiracy to traffic about 40 ounces of cannabis, twice the minimum amount that merits a death sentence. In many parts of the world, including neighboring Thailand, cannabis has been decriminalized. There has been mounting pressure in Singapore to abolish capital punishment. Syrians in Idlib city protested against Arab countries' warming relations with President Bashar al-Assad's regime. The connection proposes normalization of terrorist regime that would harm the Syrian people. These countries have previously isolated Assad since the beginning of the 12-year war. However, an earthquake that killed thousands in Turkey and Syria happened, leading for them to reach out to Assad. This month, diplomats from 9 Arab nations gathered in Saudi Arabia to discuss ending Syria's prolonged diplomatic isolation. The rebel-held Idlib is home to approximately 3 million people, with half of them being war-displaced individuals. The area is controlled under rebel groups Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and Al-Qaeda. A severe dengue outbreak in Argentina has killed more than 40 people and infected more than 60,000 people in the northwest. The infection came from Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. The last major outbreak in Argentina occurred in 2020. According to the health ministry, dengue fever cases are beginning to level off. Biologist Marianela Garcia Alba said they are irradiating thousands of mosquitoes in labs, which aims to curb the spread of dengue. The provinces of Salta, Tucumán, and Jujuy or Jujuy in Argentina's northwestern region have seen the highest number of deaths. Dengue symptoms include fever, headaches, nausea, and joint pain. The Health Ministry encourages individuals to take more anti-mosquito precautions, such as installing mosquito nets on doorways and windows, using insect repellent, and removing water containers that could serve as mosquito breeding grounds. In California, a Disneyland animatronic caught fire amid a live show. This occurred after the 45-foot-tall Maleficent dragon shot its fireball. Disney staff extinguished the fire while patrons evacuated the area. No injuries were reported. Authorities say they are investigating the cause of the fire. Meanwhile, sources say the incident may have come from a fuel line leak. Air pollution in Thailand has left millions of people in need of treatment for respiratory problems. Since the beginning of the year, 2.4 million people have been treated for medical problems linked to breathing the country's air. Authorities say this past week alone, nearly 200,000 people sought treatment. Scenes like these are commonplace in the country's hospitals. And as patients struggle to breathe, hospitals struggle to keep up with the demand. Bangkok and the northern city of Chiang Mai ranked among the top 10 most polluted cities in the world last week. Elderly people are the most vulnerable. But street vendors and tuk-tuk drivers are also at risk. The economic cost of the toxic air is estimated at more than $63 billion, or about 11% of Thailand's gross domestic product. The main causes of the pollution are smoke from wildfires, farmers burning crop stubble, vehicle emissions, and industry fumes. Up next, find out how researchers can make an implantable device for heart disorders. K-pop girl grouped twice to perform at Philippine Arena. And Blackpink earns new Guinness World Record. Catch the latest in business, sports, and entertainment when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Samahan ang paborito nating barkada sa umaga. Magbibigay ng saya, tawanan at iba't ibang pakulo sa inyong umaga. Busog ba kayo sa kaalaman at updated ang umaarangkadang mga balita? Matutong kumita, magluto, mayroon ding sayawan at kantahan. Ang programa na nagbibigay inspirasyon sa bawat kada all over the world. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 hanggang alas 8 ng umaga, dito lang sa Net25.
Laban na! Kung hanap mo ay mga kwentuhang nakaka-good vibes, mga payong pampa-healthy at pampa-beauty, at mga storyang nakaka-inspire, dito, bawal ang nega. Let's spread love and abasang! Samahan niyo ako, Dito lang sa Net25 tuwing alas 11 ng umaga.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net25.
Graphene is a layer of carbon atoms arranged in a hexagonal or honeycomb pattern known for its biomedical use. It is transparent, conductive, and mechanically strong. Now, researchers are looking at whether it could be used as a pacemaker or an implantable device to correct heart disorders. Cardiovascular engineers led by Igor Efimov at Northwestern University in Chicago have worked for years to revise pacemakers because the device, when frequently flexed due to heartbeats, eventually breaks. In 2021, Dmitry Kiev, a biomedical engineer at the University of Texas at Austin, discovered that the anatomically thin graphene can work as temporary medical tattoos or e-tattoos. Now, Efimov and Kiev teamed up and placed graphene tattoos on heart tissues of live rats to correct irregular heartbeats or arrhythmia. Efimov estimates that in 5 years, it could be ready for testing on human hearts. K-pop fans are excited for another concert at the Philippine Arena. Sean Michael C. tells us more about the next performing act.
K-pop girl group Twice surprised the Filipino K-pop community as they announced the Asian stops for the Ready to Be World Tour. Included among the list of countries is none other than the Philippines, much to the excitement of their Filipino fans, also known as Once. Twice is set to perform on September 30 at the Philippine Arena, the largest indoor arena in the world, boasting a monstrous 55,000 seating capacity. Twice debuted in 2015 under JYP Entertainment. Composed of Nayeon, Jonghyun, Momo, Sana, Jihyo, Mina, Taeyeon, Chaeyoung, and Chui, the 9-member group is considered as one of the most successful K-pop acts in history. This marks Twice's second concert in the country, with the first one being Twice Lights in Manila back in 2019. Twice's local concert promoter in the country, Live Nation Philippines, stated that more details regarding the show will be released soon. The K-pop superstars will be the 9th act ever to perform a solo concert at the Philippine Arena, as the venue continues to establish itself as the main host for the biggest artists in the world, including other global acts such as K-pop groups Blackpink and 17, British singer Harry Styles, and the upcoming show of Grammy award-winning artist Bruno Mars. Sean Michael C. for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Blackpink breaks records once again as they set a new Guinness World Record, or GWR. GWR revealed that as of April 12, Blackpink had accumulated more than 30 billion views on YouTube, making them the most watched group music channel. According to GWR, the group's music video Do 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 became the first K-pop group music video with over 2 billion views. The latest record comes after the group's multiple sweep in 2020, during which time their How You Like That music video smashed a number of records, including most viewed YouTube video in 24 hours, most viewed music video on YouTube in 24 hours by a K-pop group. Fans are proud of their favorite group, especially Filipino Blinks, who recently saw them perform at the Philippine Arena. It's Monday, and to kickstart your week, here's a quote from 19th century British actress Audrey Hepburn. "Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible." Of course, for as long as you keep believing. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.